While Ferrari have been turning up to the track this season, they haven't really got running in the development race yet. Their car has been porpoising at every race so far, but unlike Mercedes, they've been able to compete with Red Bull for race wins. Recently though, Red Bull have been way ahead in car development and it's starting to hurt the prancing horse's title credentials. In Barcelona though, that's going to change, and it couldn't come at a more perfect time for the Scuderia. Let us fill you in on why now is the perfect time for Ferrari to make changes and how they're going to help them beat Max Verstappen. Every race this season, Red Bull have been bringing upgrades to their car, but if you subscribe to our channel, then you probably already knew that, as we tell you about them every time. What this has meant for Ferrari though is that the advantage they had early in the season has started to disappear. If Miami is anything to go by, Red Bull will be in for another big points haul in Barcelona. After the Melbourne Grand Prix, Charles Leclerc looked to be in an unassailable position at the top of the World Drivers' Championship standings. After that race, Max Verstappen had to overturn the second biggest points deficit in F1 history if he wanted to defend his World Drivers' Championship title. Since then though, the momentum has started to shift back to Red Bull, and Max is now only 19 points behind Charles Leclerc. Ferrari have let their early lead slide, but Barcelona could be the perfect time to take back control of the podium places from Red Bull. Let's quickly look at how they ended up in this position before we talk about why they need to make changes now before it's too late. The only thing that's held back Red Bull this season has been their reliability. After Miami, Verstappen urged his team to find a way to replicate their issue-free Imola weekend on a regular basis. On my side, I had a lot of issues on Friday, which compromises your weekend and especially yesterday. Of course, today everything went well with the start, but it also could have been the other way round. And then you of course can say like, well, fair enough, because if you missed almost a whole Friday, what can you do about it? We just have to nail down a really positive weekend without issues. I think of course, Imola, we had that, but it's still a bit of hit and miss too much. So we just have to make sure that we're more reliable and more on top of things. But as you can see, the car is quick. I'm very happy about that. I mean, if you'd be slow and reliable, that's probably also not a good thing. Red Bull have had to counter these reliability issues so far this season. When they can't be sure if they're going to finish every race, they have to make sure the ones they do finish are big scores. What this has forced them to do is to bring upgrades to every single race. So far, the plan has worked. When their cars have finished a race without technical issues, they've secured 3 first places, a second place and a 4th place. The only reason that 4th place isn't another 2nd place is because Sergio Perez got caught out by a safety car in Saudi Arabia. What did the Ferrari team make of this strategy by Red Bull then? After the Miami Grand Prix, Ferrari team principal Mattia Binotto stated that the differences in form between this team and Red Bull could be explained by the extensive upgrades brought to Imola by its rival. However, he believes Red Bull will be unable to maintain its current rate of change without exceeding the cost cap limit by the end of the year. It's true that Red Bull have improved their car since the very start of the season and they introduced upgrades. If I look at the last 2 races, maybe they've got a couple of attempts per lap faster to us. Now I have no doubt that in order to keep the pace, we need to develop ourselves and introduce upgrades. I hope, because there is as well a budget cap, that at some stage Red Bull will stop development. Otherwise, I'll not understand how they can do that. If Red Bull's car had been working without reliability issues from the start of the season, then they may not have used this strategy. They could have done what Ferrari and Mercedes have done. They've both waited to get more data and make decisions based off analysis of that data. What that means is that both teams have been slower to develop than Red Bull, but they will be hoping that the changes they make will be more impactful. Of course, neither of those teams have Adrian Newey designing their car, who seems to just know what will work and what won't. So why is Barcelona the perfect time for Ferrari to bring upgrades? Well, let's have a look at the championship tables to analyse that. After the Australian Grand Prix, Ferrari led Red Bull in the Constructors' Championship by 104 to 55 points. Over the last 2 races though, Red Bull have reduced that 49-point deficit to 6 points. In the drivers' standing, Charles Leclerc led the drivers' standings by 71 points, while Max Verstappen was on 25. That 46-point deficit has now shrunk to 19 points. If they let Red Bull continue as they have, securing 21.5 constructors' points a race more than Ferrari, the prancing horse will lose their spot at the top of the constructors' standings. It is always better to have your rivals chasing you than you chasing them. In the current position, Ferrari have a little wriggle room, while Red Bull can't afford any mistakes. Why let Red Bull take back control of the championship when they can bring a big upgrade package based on all the data that they've recorded so far this season? Now you know how they got into this position and why Barcelona is the perfect place for a change, let's fill you in on what they're planning to bring. These changes will be pivotal to the title battle, and Charles Leclerc agrees. The updates will be fundamental for the whole championship. We hope to be able to take a leap forward in the next races. Charles Leclerc and Mattia Binotto have both been teasing what the upgrades might be and how big it will be. But we now know that Ferrari is set to bring substantial upgrades, including a new floor that should reduce porpoising and help Ferrari run the car lower. Binotto reckons Red Bull has got a couple of tenths per lap faster to us thanks to the upgrades brought to Imola. They'll want the new floor to give them at least that much of an improvement, and ideally more, so they can fight Red Bull in the race again. It could be at least our turn to try to develop as much as we can the car by introducing upgrades. And I think it's not a surprise that we may have a package in Barcelona which will be important for us, said Binotto. As usual, I hope the package we're introducing is working as expected, and in that case, it can be a good boost in order to try and catch up the current gap we've got to Red Bull. Ferrari ran with more downforce than expected in Miami after abandoning a plan to use a lower drag rear wing because of the challenge adjusting to the new track surface. This exaggerated the usual straight line speed deficit Ferrari had to the lower drag Red Bull, but did not come with the anticipated gains in cornering performance, at least not at the lowest speeds, where Ferrari had previously had an advantage. We knew that our aerodynamic configuration would have damaged us a bit on the straights, explained Binotto, but we were hoping to recover in the low-speed sections. It was like that in the section between 5 and 7, but in curves 12 and 13 it wasn't like that. Red Bull have been very good in this respect, just as they've been very good in managing the medium tyres. It is something that we'll have to evaluate and understand. The margin of difference is not huge. We won the first and second time in qualifying, and over the entire weekend, the differences in terms of performance were in any case contained. Reliable Italian journalist Roberto Chinchero wrote that Ferrari have invested significant resources in the Barcelona package, the first upgrade package for the F175. In Maranello, they've invested important resources in the Barcelona package, and after the weekend in Miami, it seems to have become a very important step to return to dictate the pace as at the start of the season. The budget cap this season means teams have to be more sparing with their upgrades. If Ferrari have invested as heavily as Roberto thinks they have, then the prancing horse might be rolling the dice in Barcelona. If their upgrades don't work as well as intended, then they could see a big chunk of their development budget wasted. If they had the luxury of time, then they could maybe wait a few more weekends to be sure. Unfortunately for them, Red Bull have made huge strides with their car in recent races, and the time for data collection and analysis is over. Barcelona is the battleground that Ferrari have chosen, and an upgraded F175 should be a lethal weapon. Want to know how Mercedes are handling their development? Then click the video that's showing on your screen and I'll see you there.